we're going to be talking about human trafficking briefly, because this is such a huge subject that we could talk for many hours about it. So Angie and I are going to do kind of a short overview, and we're going to have some ways that we can suggest that we can help end the problem or at least alleviate the suffering. I asked Pastor Rob if I could do this partly to raise the awareness of the issues, and also because I found a way that is really helpful to some of the victims from human trafficking. By purchasing the things that these women are making, we can help them to supplement their meager incomes with necessities and food. Most everyone is aware that human trafficking is a huge problem in our day. Estimates are that the total market value of human trafficking may be as high as $32 billion US. In Europe, criminals are grossing around $2.5 billion a year through sexual exploitation and forced labor. There are approximately 28 to 30 million slaves worldwide, more than at any other time in history. Let us remember that in human trafficking, we're not talking about the sale of drugs or contraband. We're talking about the sale of human beings. It's difficult to wrap our minds around the fact that human beings are being treated like commodities. We can't imagine how men would think nothing of profiting from the cruelty and inhumanity of capturing and selling human beings into slavery, whether for labor or for sex. When most of us think of slavery, we get a picture of the Africans coming to the United States in the 1800s. We had a bloody war to end that slavery, and most people think that slavery has ended, but it hasn't. We still have slavery, but in a new form. The essence of slavery is the practice of one or more persons forcing others to work, commercially or privately, against their will and for the profit of their masters. This practice has not ended. It has merely changed form. In one of the handouts that you have there on the table, there's a comparison of the characteristics of old plantation slavery, or what people call chattel slavery, and modern slavery. I got this off of the website from Humboldt State University. This is something that came from their curriculum that they have at their school, and I want to make sure I give them credit. I'm not going to go over every single point on there, but it's really interesting, and it's full of some interesting information, and you can look at it on your own. I just want to point out 4 major differences. 3 of them are on the handout, and there's another one that they didn't discuss. Since slavery was legal in 1800, it was open and available for all to see. In modern slavery, it's illegal, so the system is concealed. Victims are controlled through threats and violence. Loved ones don't know where these girls are. Since chattel slavery was legal, slaves had a significant market value. They were protected for that reason. Today, women and girls are only valuable until they're past their prime or get sick. The traffickers just throw the girls out because these wicked, heartless criminals are able to continue to supply the market with fresh turnover of new and ever younger girls and women. One thing I'd like to add here that's not on your handout is that many of the slave owners in the South were Christians. Of course, we don't agree with slavery, and it was wrong. But I'm just pointing out that the Christian masters provided for their slaves out of humanitarian motives. They saw the slaves as human beings. They just felt like, well, this is my station in life, and that's yours. But they didn't treat them like objects the way the modern slavers do. The masters in the Old South built churches and schools for their slaves. How many modern pimps do you think care a whit for the girls as humans with emotional, psychological, or spiritual needs? To modern slavers, the victims are only objects to be exploited for how much money they can get for them. In the 1800s, in the United States, race determined slave status. In modern slavery, economic vulnerability and deprivation determine slave status. The poor and the undereducated are the targets. Another big difference is what happens to slaves when they are past their usefulness. In the 1800s, plantation owners still supplied housing and food for their aged slaves. There were laws on the books requiring this since slavery was legal and regulated. And as we mentioned before, Christian masters felt a responsibility to take care of them. In our day, slavery is illegal, so the existence of the girls is mostly unknown. When they're past their prime or they've become sick with venereal disease or other illness, they're turned out of the brothels, homeless and helpless. Many of the girls have become addicted to drugs that they were forced to take. Many die of exposure or starvation. They are often too ashamed to ask for help. Churches and organizations can be a great help for these abused women. Well, some people are surprised to find out that human trafficking is not just a third world or European problem. Portland, Oregon has one of the highest incident rates per capita for the sexual victimization of women, teens, and children in the United States. Look at those dark red dots on that path along the West Coast. That's I-5. The police tell us that the I-5 corridor is rife with human trafficking. The freeway makes it easy to move girls quickly up to Seattle and Tacoma or all the way down to Los Angeles. Any event in a city that attracts a large number of men is a magnet for the traffickers. Keith Bickford, the head of the human trafficking force in Multnomah County, explains, a lot of the traffickers trade the girls or send the girls up there or back down here for business. Women and girls are ensnared in sex trafficking in a variety of ways. Some are lured with offers of legitimate or perfectly legal work as shop assistants or waitresses. Others are promised love or educational opportunities or just a better life. Girls who have run away from home are particularly vulnerable. They are easy targets for a man who will show them some kind of affection. Often, before being forced into prostitution, women are forcibly raped by the traffickers themselves in order to initiate a cycle of abuse and degradation. Some women are drugged in order to prevent them from escaping. Once broken in, sex trafficked victims can service up to 30 men a day and are vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases, HIV infection, and unwanted pregnancy. Once they become a viability up to their pimps, they're just mercilessly thrown out on the town. What a horrendous problem. Although many churches and groups have taken up the cause against sex trafficking, no one church or organization can solve this problem. The problem must be tackled on every level, from the national government to local governments. There are many organizations attacking the problem. A few of them are listed on page 2 of Angie's handout. What can we do? Well, the problem may seem too overwhelming, but there are many things that we as individuals can do. No, we're not all called to be missionaries or to work full-time in ministries that rescue victims of trafficking. But here are 5 ways that we as individuals can help. First of all, pray. The problem isn't going away very soon. Secondly, learn. Learn more about the issues and how you can help. Be aware of the signs of trouble. In our day, we can't be too careful about letting our daughters move away to places where there are high incidences of human trafficking. This subject is often the dark elephant in the room. We can begin to be more open about it and discuss it in Bible studies and at church. There are many good articles, books, and videos that are written with valuable information. Be ready to share this information with others. Develop a compassionate heart for those who are oppressed or abused. It's difficult for us in our safe, comfortable home to imagine the horrible conditions that modern-day slaves live in. Perhaps we could identify better if we read the story of just a single human being. Consider this story from India as told by Sarah Simons in her book, This Is No Ordinary Joy. In India, 300,000 children are trapped in carpet loom factories. These children often do not see the light of day for months or years. Their small fingers are prized for making the tiny, elaborate knots of the Oriental rugs. Traffickers promise their parents that the children will be educated, that they will work part-time, and they will be able to send some money home. In fact, they work 12 hours a day, every day, with little pay. Many of these parents never see their children again. Rescuing these children is very dangerous, but one man named Kailash is doing his best to rescue the children from this evil. With the help of local communities, Kailash raids the factories and brings out as many children as he can. Many activists have been killed or hurt or wrongfully arrested in these raids because human trafficking is a form of organized crime, and the slaveholders are prepared to defend their livelihood. Police are bribed to overlook child labor and slavery. They too are motivated to protect their source of income, even if it means arresting innocent people. The raid usually involves a heated confrontation with lots of shouting, threats, or physical violence. After one particular raid, 7 rescued children were riding in Kailash's car. He had fruit on hand for them, including bananas, which must be the most common fruit in India. Even in the most remote villages, bananas are universally available. Asha, who was about 11, picked up one of the bananas and took a bite without peeling it. "What kind of a potato is this?" she asked. Asha, who had worked in the factory with her family since early childhood, did not recognize any other food than rice and potatoes. She could not remember ever seeing a banana. This is what slavery does to children. They're completely isolated and they lack the basic knowledge and life skills. After receiving an explanation and to help peeling the fruit, Asha and the other children devoured the bananas with the greatest pleasure. A few silent minutes passed. Then Asha spoke up again. "Why did you not come sooner?" she asked matter-of-factly. At first, Kailash laughed. He thought she meant, "Why did you not come sooner? Because these bananas are so good." He was appalled when she continued, "Why did you not come sooner, before my little brother died?" "Why did you not come sooner, before my mother was raped in front of everybody? Why did you not come sooner, before my childhood was over?" Kailash, who has rescued thousands, was saddened and shamed by the child's words. He vowed to redouble his efforts until every child slave in India has been freed. I think sometimes making this issue more personal helps to soften our hearts and encourage us to do more to help others and follow in the steps of our Lord Jesus, even as he dealt individually with many people. Another thing we can do is support groups that are working to end human trafficking. Here are some organizations close to home. World Renew is the Christian Reformed organization committed to helping children who are undereducated and unemployed and at risk of being exploited. The Salvation Army. Yes, those bell ringers are raising money for the homeless and the hungry at this time of year, but the Salvation Army is also deeply committed to the modern-day fight against human trafficking. Since their inception in 1865 in England, the Salvation Army has sought to protect women from the horrors of sexual exploitation. Rahab's Sisters. Their mission is to offer hospitality to exploited women in the Portland metro area, especially those that have been impacted by the sex industry, domestic violence, poverty, substance abuse, and homelessness. You can go online to find more information about any of these organizations. The Oregon Center for Christian Voices. We live in Salem, near the Capitol, where the laws are made. My prayer is that some who have developed a compassion for the victims of trafficking will feel led to get involved politically. At the very least, we could all call our representatives when we hear of a bill that is up for consideration to toughen the laws against traffickers and pimps, or to strengthen the laws protecting the victims. I think I put the website for them on the handout on the front page, if you're interested in going there. If there's any current I didn't see any current legislation, but that's a good way to keep up. Another way to help is to buy products from organizations that sell the creative work done by women who've been rescued from trafficking or abuse. Tonight, I've arranged a very practical way that will help the women who've been rescued from trafficking. If you search online, you'll see that there's a lot of organizations out there that are doing this. Not necessarily all of them are Christian, but I am very comfortable working with Linda Eggo, the founder of Eternal Threads. Linda sells many more items than that on her website. She encourages women to have a gathering, such as we are tonight, at their churches to raise awareness of human trafficking and to raise money so that she can continue to buy goods from impoverished women. You can join an organization such as the Red Thread Movement. Way back at the end of the table are some red crochet bracelets made by victims from Nepal. In 2011, Linda Eggo took 3 girls from Abilene Christian University to Nepal to see firsthand the safe houses and the anti-trafficking border between Nepal and India. I think most of you know that's probably one of the worst spots in the world right now for trafficking. They trafficked thousands of girls from Nepal into India. Upon their return to the U.S., these 3 girls all felt an overwhelming desire to do more. So they brainstormed to think of ways to help. The idea of the Red Thread Movement bracelet was born. The concept was simple. The girls living in the safe house in Nepal would make these red woven bracelets, and they would accomplish 3 goals. Making the bracelets gave them some employment. The sale of the bracelets not only employed the girls, but also helped fund the safe house that welcomes them and continues the funding of the anti-trafficking border unit. Wearing the red bracelet creates awareness of sex trafficking. The bracelet idea quickly became a movement that is still going strong today. Thousands of girls have been rescued and have been given hope and a new life.
So I was just going to talk very briefly about what I was able to do when I was overseas. Some of you know that I taught English in a couple of countries. The second country that I taught English in was Laos. And one of the reasons that I chose Laos was because I was aware of how bad human trafficking was in Southeast Asia. And so the opportunity to possibly get more involved in the issue came up, and so that's how I chose to go and teach in Laos. So I taught at a university in the capital city, and then I volunteered on the side to help girls at a local Christian organization called Salt and Light. And they had to rescue some of these girls out of homes because it wasn't just that they were at risk from traffickers coming and kidnapping them, but some of them were at risk of being abused by people, but either in their family or sometimes their family members would try to sell them to make a profit off of them as well. And so they had to come and live at this shelter and attend school. And this shelter also helped them learn some vocational skills. They taught them how to do things like cutting hair. And they also opened up a cafe in the capital city that these girls were able to go and work at as well. And so I just went and taught them with a couple of friends of mine once a week and got to know them. This second picture is from a Christmas party that we had. Yeah, if anyone has more questions about that, I'd be happy to answer that. But that's just briefly my very short experience in being able to help some that were at risk for being abused or trafficked. And then on the resource page that I put together, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I've listed a lot of books that I've read over the years. I became aware of this issue 15-ish years ago and have read a lot and attended class at Western Seminary on the subject. And I listed a lot of the books that I came across just because I know those wouldn't necessarily be things that people would be aware of right away. And then I listed a few articles and websites, but those are easier to find online, I think, if anybody really wants to. You can find plenty of resources on the internet. And also, I put some of these books that I have up here if anyone wants to look at them. Obviously, with the subject matter, anybody that wants to read more in depth on the issue should just be aware that it can be graphic. And the people that work on this issue long term aren't afraid to let you know just what exactly is happening to these girls. I didn't list many DVDs or movies. I frankly haven't come across too many that necessarily handle the issue very well. I feel like they often just sensationalize it and just try to go for just grabbing people's attention without really teaching very much on the issue. And so these are just a few resources that I listed. because there's a lot that you can learn. There's a lot to learn about trafficking, and it can be more complex the more you look into it. But that's just a resource to help you get started.
Okay, well, that was a really rush overview. Like I said, there's so many ramifications to this that we could have talked about for a long time. Well, how did I find out about Eternal Threads? About 3 or 4 years ago, when they had Christmas trees up before Halloween, I got really disgusted with Christmas, and I decided bah humbug to the whole thing. I decided the businesses and commercial people out there were just trying to make you spend money, and I got sick of it, and I said, nuts. I'm just sending everybody a Christmas card this year. Well, I got to thinking about it, and really, at Christmas, it's one time you have a lot of opportunities to witness about the Lord Jesus. I mean, you can go into a store and hear Christmas carols playing. I mean, it's one time of year that we have these opportunities. And so I thought, well, okay, well, maybe I should rethink this. About this time, Angie gave me the websites of some of these organizations that are selling items that trafficked women are making. And so I went online and I looked, and I became really impressed. Many of them were not necessarily Christian, but I liked the Eternal Threads website. I read the stories there that she had of some of the women who had been rescued. They praised God for the help that they were receiving now, but mostly for the joy of becoming Christians. Linda Egel, founder of Eternal Threads, is a devout Christian who's been ministering to women in poverty or at risk of trafficking since the 1980s. Linda Egel. But she's also passionate about sharing the gospel with the women, giving them hope of eternal life as well as a better life in this world. So I decided to purchase some items from Eternal Threads that year for everybody on my list, and that's basically all anybody gets for Christmas from me for about the last 3 or 4 years. It's made giving at Christmas more meaningful. Plus, I feel like I'm giving 2 presents and not just one. My relatives get a present, but some woman half a world away, who I may never meet till I get to heaven, is also getting a present. Just look at that joyful face. She experienced new life, free from slavery, but most of all, new life in Christ. Okay, so next we have a short video to tell you more about what Linda Egel has done, and you'll see some of these women that she's met over there.
In a village in southern Madagascar, Mary is making breakfast for her family. Today, like every day, they'll eat rice and greens cooked over an open fire.
Amen.
As Mary gathers with her family around the table to give thanks and eat, her sister Goretti has already left her home in another village. She carries a bundle of silk shawls woven in the village by her mother and another sister. Each day, Goretti joins Mary for the long trek to town to sell the family's handiwork. For Goretti, a widow with 5 children, each sale is crucial.
When I sell a scarf, I earn 10,000 ariary. That buys food for 2 days. But I usually only earn that amount twice a week.
The work requires Goretti to walk 2 hours each day to and from town. Here, for the past few years, Goretti has tried to sell her shawls walking up and down the street. That's where one day she happened to meet Eternal Threads. We thought her scarves were beautiful, so we ordered 40. On our next visit, we were thrilled to find her at her own stand, selling not just shawls, but also wooden goods carved by her nephew and brother-in-law.
When were they able to get their stand here?
Just when you paid.
And they did this right away. That's great. Oh, that one's good too.
With the money from the Eternal Threads order, I was able to expand my business. When I can't sell shawls, I can sell carved wood. So now the children can always eat.
Just for now, I'd like to order 40 scarves like we did before, 20 of each style.
Will that be good? Will that be good?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. They're beautiful.
I'm very happy and I have more hope now. The Eternal Threads order has helped me to have a better life.
Inspired by the grace, dignity, and hardworking nature of village women, Eternal Threads began its work in India in 2000. Today, we serve women and children in 5 countries. The goal is to provide work and income to women whose families typically live on less than $1 or $2 a day. By generating sustainable livelihoods, we reduce the risk of their children being trafficked or subjected to other forms of exploitation. The work of Eternal Threads is facilitated by local partners in each country who are guided by their faith to serve those in need.
Okay, we're taking 20.
20, okay.
In Madagascar, our partner Maradu identifies village artisans like the family of Goretti and Mary and coordinates communication and transportation for the beautiful woven shawls, raffia, and handmade paper to reach you here in the U.S. In northern Thailand, our partner Room Mit rescues Burmese refugee street children who are at risk of being trafficked. And it provides services in tribal villages to non-citizens who have few rights or opportunities. Now it is working with Eternal Threads to train villagers to create these unique and stunning jewelry pieces.
I started Room Mit because a lot of children here don't have Thai citizenship, which means they are the lowest of the low in society. We help them because they have nowhere else to go.
In Afghanistan, our partner One Maker also trains women artisans to make jewelry. Their income allows them to provide for their families, and especially to educate their daughters. Working with our partners, Eternal Threads facilitates the sustaining of handiwork skills like weaving and crochet that have been part of the culture of villagers, like these women in Madagascar, for often countless generations, preserving traditions and livelihoods.
Weaving is part of our inheritance from the ancestors. Since childhood, every woman in this village knows how to weave.
The shawls are woven in remote villages in homes shaped from the red dirt of the Malagasy countryside. It all begins with a cocoon. The raw silk is stripped, boiled, rinsed, stretched, and left to dry in the sun. It's then spun into thread and often dyed in brilliant hues, ready to take shape in exquisite patterns and textures on the loom. These shawls and all Eternal Threads products are purchased directly from the women who receive a fair and living wage.
I use the money I earn for additional expenses. For butter, meat, or things like that. And also to help send our children to school.
When the selling didn't go well, I had to go out and work in the fields. But when it was good, we bought a zebu for milk and a piece of land where we built a house.
Eternal Threads also gives back to the communities in which we work. We use profits to fund literacy training, anti-trafficking border units in Nepal, equipment, and the education of other village children. These are some of the girls in India who have been given a future. Girls in extreme poverty are especially at risk for child labor, early marriage, or even being trafficked into prostitution. But because of people like you, they are in school. Village life is hard, and the work is very long. But a woman's life is not necessarily a sad or bleak existence. Many, like Goretti and Mary, have the support of family and the strength of community.
In this village, we're all family. If a person can't walk, we carry him on our backs to the hospital. We look after each other.
Whether in Madagascar, India, Thailand, Afghanistan, or Nepal, they take pride in their care of home and family and in the beautiful goods they make. These smiles are for the photographer and you. The handiwork you buy today has traveled far. From its start in a village, it has been transported by foot, rickshaw, train, and plane, or even balanced atop a head. And for every mile your shawl or tote or giraffe has traveled, a connection is made. A global community of women is created. This is Linda Eggle. I'm the founder of Eternal Threads, and I'm inviting you to join Goretti, Mary, all our partners, and me in sustaining life and building community. With the simple gesture of purchasing a woman's handiwork, you can bless her life and give a child a future.
Whoa!